So we were just at the old courthouse in downtown St. Louis, which has ties to Dred Scott and one of the most famous Supreme Court decisions of all time. And as you can see, I'm in this giant cemetery right now. This is Calvary Cemetery in northern St. Louis, and this place also has ties to Dred Scott. This is the place where Dred Scott found his final resting place. So he's buried here somewhere. We got here and it's massive. Like, I think about 400 acres worth of massive. So we're gonna look around. We're gonna try and find where Dred Scott is buried. And of course, as we've seen in other videos, we like cemeteries because they contain markers that connect us to other points and people in history. And there's some other pretty famous people here at this cemetery that we're gonna try and find. Alright, so here's an interesting one. This is a marker for the remains of two Native Americans by the name of Black Eagle and Speaking Eagle. These are two men that had met Lewis and Clark on their expedition into Louisiana Purchase territory. They had traveled down from what is present-day Idaho, and were looking for information on the Bible, and also a little bit more about white culture, and ended up getting sick and dying while they were here on their visit to William Clark. Wow. Okay, so here's one for all of you literature enthusiasts. This is the grave of Thomas Lanier Williams. I think that's pronounced Lanier, but you probably know him better by his pen name, Tennessee Williams, author of the plays Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and A Streetcar Named Desire, both of which were made into very popular movies. So yeah, Tennessee Williams is buried here. Okay, so I just walked away from the Tennessee Williams grave, and here's one for a guy named Timothy Dempsey, which you can see says he was born in Ireland, and ordained a priest. So I mean, he's not a famous person by any means, but I thought the interesting thing was right here, it says the exiles rest. I just wanted to include that because I thought that was just a darn cool headstone. Interesting. All kinds of interesting stuff we've seen here. Alright, so inside this mausoleum right here is the final resting place of a guy named Mickey Carroll, who was one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. We went inside there and we couldn't find it, but he's in there somewhere. But we got tired of looking and gave up. Holy smokes. Check it out. William Tecumseh Sherman, Civil War general, who is most well known for what is now called Sherman's March to the Sea. I had no idea that he was buried here. How cool is that? This is the guy that coined the phrase "war is hell." And he certainly brought a lot of it to the Confederacy, try and break their will to fight towards the end of the Civil War. Very interesting. Hey, and looky there, here's his son, who, interestingly enough, died the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor. Alright, well, took us a little bit of time and a decent amount of walking, but we finally found it. The grave of Dred Scott. That's pretty cool. In memory of a simple man who wanted to be free. So there's another element to this whole Dred Scott story that's pretty interesting. If you look on this marker, in it, it says freed from slavery by his friend Taylor Blow. Now, originally, Dred Scott was owned by a man named Peter Blow. Okay, Peter Blow ended up selling Dred Scott to the Emerson family, John Emerson, and then of course John Emerson moved him around to Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin. You had the whole Supreme Court case that took place. Well, after all of that happened, and after the Supreme Court ruled that Dred Scott had to remain a slave because he was African American, therefore did not have the rights to sue because he wasn't a citizen, the children of Taylor Blow ended up coming into possession of Dred Scott. In the years since Dred Scott had been sold to the Emersons, the children of Peter Blow went from becoming slaveholders to becoming an abolitionist family. They had changed their viewpoint. So they came under possession of Dred Scott and then ended up freeing him. Dred Scott lived just a short time, ended up dying of tuberculosis, but he died a free man. Not only that, he was originally buried in another graveyard, and that graveyard closed down, which I don't even know how that happens. Taylor Blow arranged to have Dred Scott dug up, exhumed, and then transferred right here to Calvary Cemetery. So he thought that much of him. Pretty amazing story, and pretty amazing to be able to stand here at the grave of such a historic figure.